I had the trailer backed halfway into the Bennett Farm when a rusty front loader rolled out of the barn and stopped directly in front of my ramps. The bucket dropped low, the old engine rattled, and before I could even step out of my truck, a woman climbed down from the machine and looked me straight in the eyes. "If you take that baler today," she said, "this farm won't survive another month." I just sat there with both hands on the steering wheel. I hadn't driven 2 hours across Kansas to hear another excuse. The round baler sitting behind the machine shed belonged to me, or at least it was supposed to. Richard Bennett had rented it 3 months earlier and paid me exactly nothing. Not after the calf sale, not after the bank transfer, not after the dozen promises he had made. I had the contract on the passenger seat, chains in the truck bed, and almost $50 worth of diesel burned getting there. I stepped out. "Good morning to you too." The woman folded her arms. "I'm serious, Ethan." "So am I." I grabbed the folder from inside the cab. "Your husband signed a 30-day agreement, then another 2 weeks, then another week after he promised cash from the cattle sale. That was 8 weeks ago." She looked at the papers, not surprised, not confused, like she already knew every word written inside. "If you take that machine," she repeated, "this place dies." I glanced toward the hayfield stretching behind the barn. The crop looked good, really good, and that almost made me angry. Good hay didn't pay bills, cash did. "That's not my problem," I said. "No," she answered quietly, "it isn't." That stopped me. Most people lied. Weather, bad markets, broken trucks. Everybody had a story. But this woman wasn't making excuses. She was just telling me the truth. "I can't keep being the nice guy," I said. "I've got my own payments. That machine needs work and I can't fix it while it's sitting here making me poorer." "I know." Then she reached into her back pocket and pulled out a yellow notebook. "I know exactly what Richard owes you." She flipped through the pages. "I know what's overdue at Prairie State Bank. I know Miller Feed wants their money. And I know the only clean income this farm has coming in is from the hay." She held the notebook toward me. "Give me 30 days, I frowned. "For what?" "Not mercy, not favors. A plan." She opened the notebook. "We cut the West Meadow first. Mr. Henderson wants premium horse hay. If the weather holds, we deliver next Friday. Then I sell the old grain drill and the spare feed wagon at auction. After that, I move 12 head of cattle. And your payment comes first." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it sounded insane. "You want me to do more work for people who still haven't paid me for the last work?" She shook her head. "No, I want you to deal with me, not Richard." At that moment, the barn door opened. Richard Bennett stepped outside, almost 60 years old. Coffee cup in one hand, cap in the other, moving slow like the morning itself had offended him. "Ethan," he called, "come on now. No need for all this." Sarah's jaw tightened. Richard smiled. "She gets worked up. You know how women are." I hated the way he said it, like she was something to manage, not someone to listen to. I looked at him. "You promised payment after the calf sale. Market dropped. You promised the transfer had already gone through. Bank mistake. You promised you'd bring cash to my shop last Friday." He spread his hands. "I got busy." Sarah closed her eyes for a second, then looked at me again. 30 days. Written terms. No side deals. No promises through him. If I miss the first payment, she pointed toward the baler, "you take it." Richard's smile disappeared. "Now hold on." "No," Sarah snapped. "You've held on long enough." Silence covered the yard. Even the loader engine sounded quieter. I finally took the notebook. The numbers weren't pretty, but they were real. Field estimates, buyer information, fuel costs, auction dates, and my name circled twice beside the words, "First payment." I folded the paper. "I'll write the contract." Richard stepped forward. "It's my farm." Sarah turned and looked him dead in the eye. "Then start acting like it." I walked back to my truck, pulled out a blank agreement sheet, and wrote the terms right there on the hood. Richard paced near the barn, complaining, muttering, but he stayed away. When Sarah signed her name, her hand didn't shake. And for reasons I couldn't explain, mine almost did. 10 minutes later, I loaded the chains back into the truck, but not onto the trailer, because I wasn't taking the baler. Not today. I drove away from Bennett Farm without the machine I came for, but Sarah's signed plan sat on the passenger seat beside me. And all the way home, I couldn't stop wondering, had I just made the smartest business decision of my life? Or the biggest mistake? 9 days. That's all it took for the whole town to start talking. Not because Sarah Bennett and I had done anything wrong, but because small towns don't need facts. They only need something to whisper about. And by the 9th day, my truck had become part of the scenery at Bennett Farm. Every morning before sunrise, Sarah was already outside, usually with a wrench in one hand and a notebook in the other. She never wasted time, never complained, and she never asked for sympathy. By 6 o'clock on the 10th morning, she was standing beside the West Meadow. When I pulled in with my service truck, she noticed immediately. "No trailer today?" she asked. "Don't make me regret it," I smiled, trying not to. The first problem hit before we even started cutting. One of the irrigation pipes along the lower field had split open. Water sprayed everywhere. Sarah shut down the pump and climbed straight into the mud. "Clamps are bad," she said. I knelt beside her. "The pipe's bad too." "I know, but we can afford clamps." That became our motto, not what was perfect, just what could survive. For 2 hours we worked in the mud together, and I noticed something. Sarah never stood around watching. She handed me tools before I asked, and when I tightened one clamp too hard, she stopped me. "Back it off. It'll crack." I looked at her. "You always this bossy?" "When people are trying to break my pipes, yes," I laughed, and for the first time, she almost smiled. By noon, we were cutting hay. Sarah drove the tractor like she'd been born on it. She knew every low spot, every hidden rock, every soft patch. She listened to the machine, and somehow that impressed me more than anything else, because she wasn't pretending to be tough. She simply was. 3 days later, the south fence collapsed. I was fueling my own tractor when my phone rang. "Ethan," Sarah said, "cattle are getting out. I'm 10 minutes away. Bring wire." When I arrived, she was already inside the pasture, moving the herd away from the broken corner. Richard was nowhere to be found. Not that Sarah mentioned him. She never complained about her husband. She simply worked around his absence. The two of us spent the entire afternoon sweating in the July heat. Temporary posts, fresh wire, moving cattle. Then one calf escaped and bolted toward the creek. Sarah jumped into the side-by-side. "Get in," she shouted, "or start running." I climbed in, and she drove like she had a personal argument with every bump in Kansas. Eventually, we cornered the calf near the water crossing. I waved my arms like an idiot while Sarah eased it back toward the gate. When it finally rejoined the herd, she shut off the engine, breathing hard. "You always this graceful?" she asked. "Advanced cattle strategy?" "You looked like a scarecrow with truck payments." I laughed so hard I almost fell out of the seat. And that started happening more. Not romance, not flirting, just two tired people forgetting to stay serious. But the town noticed, and the town talked. A week later, we stopped at Dawson Feed Supply for twine and hydraulic oil. Mike Dawson leaned against the counter with a smirk. "Seeing a lot of your truck over at Bennett Farm lately." Sarah froze. I ignored him, but Mike kept going. "Guess you're helping Richard in more ways than one." The whole store became silent. Everyone heard it. I slowly set down my pen and looked him in the eyes. "Put the bearing on my account. Put the twine on hers. And don't talk about a woman standing 3 feet away from you like she's not in the room." Mike's smile vanished. Nobody said another word. Sarah picked up the supplies and walked outside. She slammed the twine into the truck bed. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yeah, I did. I can handle Mike. I know. But that wasn't me saving you." I shut the tailgate. "That was me refusing to stand there while somebody treated you cheap." For a second, she didn't say anything. Then she nodded, and we drove home. Day 9 brought disaster. The baler jammed completely. The weather window was perfect. Mr. Henderson was expecting the first load by Friday. And suddenly, the machine sounded like it wanted to die. I killed the PTO. Sarah was beside me before I even climbed down. "Bearing? Maybe. Plug first." We spent hours pulling packed hay out by hand. Dust covered us. Sweat soaked our shirts. Grease stained Sarah's cheek. I almost didn't mention it, but she caught me looking. "What? You've got grease on your face. So do you. Mine's professional. Yours looks expensive." She laughed, and for 1 second, I forgot why I had come to that farm in the first place. By sunset, we had replaced the bearing, but we'd lost nearly 3 hours. We stood beside the field watching daylight disappear. Sarah frowned. We cut the east strip first tomorrow. I shook my head. North side dries faster. The east side's cleaner. The north side's ready. She looked ready to throw a wrench at me. Then she opened her notebook, checked her moisture readings, and sighed. Fine. I raised an eyebrow. Fine? Don't enjoy this. I'm trying not to. You're failing. By Friday morning, the first load was ready. Not perfect, not pretty, but real. Tight square bales, fresh straps, clean paperwork. Sarah stood beside the trailer with both hands on her hips, still looking like she didn't trust good news. Then Richard appeared, coffee cup in hand, sunglasses on, like he had supervised everything. Looks like my farm still knows how to work. Sarah said nothing. Richard turned toward me. You two seem to be getting along pretty good. Something ugly hid underneath those words. But before I could answer, Sarah spoke. The first load is ready because Ethan showed up. I showed up. You didn't. Richard's smile disappeared, and the look in his eyes changed. For the first time since I'd met him, he didn't look lazy. He looked threatened. As Sarah climbed into the passenger seat beside me, Richard called after us. Just remember who owns this place. Sarah didn't even turn around, but quietly she answered, I remember who almost lost it. And as we drove away with the first hayload behind us, neither of us knew that someone had already made a move, because before sunrise that morning, a new bank account had been added to the buyer's paperwork, and neither Sarah nor I had authorized it.